But in God of War, the second game, he's definitely a beast, especially in Ragnarok. But there's some beings he can't quite beat yet, but his fullest potential is still growing. Even Kratos said it. The man even saying himself, we don't know the reach of his abilities. His fullest potential is unknown. And just for food for thought, the first giant was a being of pure creation and chaos, and was the mother and father to everything that came after. Even deities, man, beast, they all came from Ymir's flesh. Even technically Atreus came from, Ymir's flesh. Man, I guess technically Kratos didn't because he came from another universe, I guess. But yeah, it lets you know potential that Atreus is dealing with this giant race and the gods like Kratos. Oh my goodness. But let's get it. How strong is Atreus? Have you ever wondered how strong is Kratos' son, Atreus? He's half deity, half giant. His mother is Laufey, who's very strong in her own right. He can heal himself just like Kratos can, just by focusing and concentrating. Take advantage of his godly genetics. Just like that. His potential was kind of shown in the first game because he got straight up punched by the god Baldur, like, without dying. Baldur did indeed have the intent to kill too, by the way, so yeah. Kratos seems to specialize in brute strength, while Atreus isn't a weakling. That doesn't seem like what he specializes in, but it does seem like he has above average durability still, being able to survive a serious punch from Baldur. But he can do cool stuff like talk to animals and stuff. This is the same Baldur that can hurt a planet-sized snake. Just like that. For a while, he didn't know his true nature, so he would just use arrows in his adventures with Kratos, having special arrows that can do that. One can say magical arrows made out of light or electric type of stuff that can be like wolf construct type of arrows like that in the background. Man, I think it's cool that he can summon bird like avatar energy waves when he feels like it, so it lets you know his arrow versatility. Or heck, one even can say an elk energy construct. For a while, he didn't know he was a deity and stuff, and he had mental blocks on himself, and it was kind of interfering, but his arrows can actually damage deities. Notice what Atreus' arrows can do to Kratos and sting him for a bit, so it lets you know them arrows ain't normal. The thing is that he actually can depower himself, and he actually can make himself sick if he believes he's a human, but he's actually a deity. That's what Atreus had to deal with. As you can see right here, like, yeah, he didn't really know, yeah, it was messing him up and making him sick. He actually must know the truth of what he is so he can accept that he's a deity, so he can subconsciously stop making himself sick and holding himself back when he's thinking he's a mere mortal and he's not. Yeah, you can see he's doing all this to himself just from mental blocks. Funny how the first game foreshadowed his abilities because he has transformations that are different than Kratos's. He has indeed sharpened his skills ever since he's gotten older because his dad has taught him how to survive. All they do is train with his accuracy, marksmanship, and all that good stuff together. Yeah, he's a fighter now. I mean, training with Kratos has its advantages because his accuracy is this good to be a helpful aid with these super arrows, not to mention doing combo moves via agility, like that's awesome. Having the marksmanship to aim while he's falling, just like that, without panicking. As you can see, he's very useful when it comes to helping out when he needs to. Ha! It's really unknown the limits of his magical abilities, but he seems to be able to project like some energy force field type stuff to protect himself or parry. And if I didn't know any better, I would argue that he can increase his attack power by adding energy, like little energy around his bow and arrow when he hits them with the bow and arrow for melee combat. Why else would the arrow be glowing when he's hitting them? Like, it's a legit shield. So he definitely doesn't technically need to carry around a physical shield. He got other swords that are magically alive, like the sword Ingrid that can fight without him necessarily and can float and just slash away at opponents when he's not even really paying attention to it. So he has like a watchful companion even without a companion. Notice how he's battling. You can see Ingrid over here doing his own thing, floating away to help him out. Atreus' magic has gotten so good, or one could call him Loki, to the point where they did like some soul binding manipulation type stuff, like literally grabbing the soul right here to place it in different soulless entities and stuff in the newer game. If Odin is defenseless and hurt and beat up, he can actually take his soul out of his body with the spells too. Like, that's crazy, ain't it? Yeah. To get an understanding of his magical different paralysis and how good he's gotten over the years, this big old realm tear that was going on, he's so competent that when Freya needed help with to close the rift, she asked his assistant saying she needs help with the spell. As you can see, yeah, lets you know that he can do spell type of stuff to close rifts. Very convenient stuff. What would they do without these magical users? I mean, he is supposedly Loki of this universe. But yeah, physical stuff is not what he specializes in though. But he's decently strong for his size though, if we're gonna be honest. And he can lift stuff up like this with help, of course. He can use stuff like this to grapple and use his knife in combat to do that. And take hits from giants. Physically speaking, he can't just lift up stuff like other powerhouses can. Maybe if he transforms, but in his base state, his strength is not as strong suit because he's not even physically stronger than Thor's daughter, I would say. But in his defense, the sword is made of some special stuff because it's a one of a kind. Her father, which is Thor, gave it to her for Valkyrie training. It's implied he can break magical seals when beings are being held down by magic. I mean, look what his knife can do to this little magical bowl that be taking souls and stuff. Like, I know this giant was battle damaged, but the fact that they can tug against a big giant like this and kind of tug together and win this tug of war, even though it's kind of a struggle. When he was hanging out with another giant, he shows how cocky he is about his skills and survivability now. Talking about how Odin could have easily killed him. He doesn't believe that Odin can kill him that easily, saying, nah, I can stand a little chance against Odin, he's thinking. But how strong is Atreus? Not kind of his standard gear and his abilities with his overpowered knife and overpowered bow he can use. He can legit transform into a bear, but this is where he gets really mad, loses control and stuff. Or into a freaking wolf, but these type of things he at first couldn't control, but he gets better at controlling it throughout the game and stuff of that such. And we probably will see him get better with it as the future goes along. But the thing is, so maybe since he can control this one, we're unsure if he can just turn into this one at will, because this one is a mightier transformation. And no, the power level of him is not just a standard wolf's power level or the strength of a regular bear either. In his bear state, he seems to even be able to give his father, Kratos, the man, the myth, the legend, a run for the money in this state or power. Of course, he can't overpower him, but he gave him quite a bit issues when Kratos was holding back a little bit. So to let you know how crazy he was in his state. He's strong enough to make shockwaves. He's ridiculously agile and fast for him to be this massive too, to be able to keep up with Kratos this much. There's no way a normal bear would be this much issue like a legit boss battle. As you can see, not to mention, he doesn't even need his bear mode to be a threat for the deities. You can't tell me his wolf mode hasn't came far when it can bite and hurt Odin. I mean, so all the crazy feats we've seen Kratos do, Atreus shouldn't be that far behind if we're being honest, because he was a helpful aid in taking on 2 Valkyries. This is legit a part of the lore. They already fought Valkyries without him actually having these kind of forms, but Atreus having his bear form helped him be able to take on a Valkyrie to show his strength even more like that. How can you disrespect him after that? Look what kind of strength he has in his bear form like this, one-shotting beings, and some of them even tried to run away. Too much power in this state. All he has to do is calm his mind and he can kind of control it, right? Especially if you're an ally. Poor Sindri. Too strong in his bear state. Kratos had issues pushing him back when he was trying to go after Freya, when he was getting out of control. To let you know, it was like literally effort. So yeah, I think Kratos definitely has the advantage in strength, but it's not that far behind like you would expect, making him calm down and turn him back, but that's still impressive. To be able to give Kratos this much trouble pretty much proves that he can move mountains too, just like Kratos has in the past. Considering this is how small Kratos is compared to Titans, he's smaller than their fingernail and he's overpowered them physically. Yes, that's his arm overpowering his grip. Beings that have defeated beings that created the universe and stuff like that, Kratos has done. Like in my Kratos video, he can give his father some issues, especially when he transformed. Atreus definitely wasn't a normal bear, because this is what happens when he fights normal looking bears. They get curb stomped just like that. Well, technically these bears wasn't normal either, but it still was no match for Kratos still, regardless. Even if you don't want to assume Atreus is necessarily equal to Thor or Odin, but you gotta respect who they respect, right? Even Thor in this game seems to have respect for the Valkyries of this universe. Why else would Odin even appoint them as Valkyries if they're not respected, right? And this lets you know how strong Atreus is. And that's the Valkyrie Queen. While I do know that Kratos did physically overpower the Valkyrie, they're not that far behind Kratos, even if they are a decent amount weaker than him. Mimir knows how strong Kratos is, but yet Mimir says, I can't think of a more formidable opponent, so you knows they got to stack up to some degree. The top feats that the Norse mythology world has, or the Greek mythology world has, which I've dissected in my Kratos videos, and the feats for Odin and stuff, it just gets ridiculous. The Valkyries, a formidable opponent, even by Kratos' standards. I know game mechanics involve some degree of damage stuff, but in cutscene cinematic type stuff, it's implied that the Valkyries can damage Kratos and endanger him. And these same Valkyrie were teaming up on Atreus this one time, and he was taking strikes from them straight up like this, despite them being this mighty. They let you know how strong he is just because he can do stuff like this to these same Valkyrie that can endanger Kratos or give him some competition. So he has to be up there with the heavy hitters. Notice in the background how Atreus literally was strong enough to rip a Valkyrie in half. Cool shot, but of these two. And considering that Thor and Odin respect these beings, don't forget that Thor is the same being that can shake 9 whole universes, 9 realms, just from the collateral of their attacks. Not only has he shooken 9 universes before, Thor and the giant snake shook and splintered the tree of life itself, the tree that holds universes within it. He shook the actual thing that was holding the universes of their cosmology, causing time travel by accident just from them violently fighting each other. That this legend is true because it actually happened visually on screen. Beings this powerful have Valkyries at high regard. Not to mention, without even spamming his bear form, he was still a helpful aid in fighting Odin in this particular battle, and he's not a flea in comparison to all this stuff, and his fighting skills has improved a lot. Respect him, right? Unfortunately, throughout his adventures, there's not much to go off of. He doesn't have that many showings, but hey, he kind of concretes himself to be a powerhouse no matter how you look at it. To be able to compete with Norse or Greek gods, it doesn't matter. Of this multiverse, anybody that can compete with Kratos to the slightest degree in actual narrative canon and not just game mechanics is impressive as heck. And I think in narrative, they implied that Atreus in his bear form could give Kratos some issues, even though Kratos is still strong and still will win. At the end of the day, that could be just me. What do you guys think? Do you like Atreus' chemistry with Thor's daughter better, or do you like it with Angrboda better? Did this video help you respect Atreus more? I hope it did. But before I get going, I have to give a quick shout out to those that have donated. It helps out a lot, believe it or not. Respect Atreus. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.